There's no perfect solution to this. They're trying to balance the fact that the world and the United States, and particularly certain parts of the United States, are just up to here with COVID. They just really need to somehow get their life back. You don't want to be reckless and throw everything aside, but you got to start inching towards that. And you're right. When you do that, you then to veer away from paying attention to something that might be important. So somebody's going to ask the question that I don't have the answer to. What's the balance? I think, what they did is they locked down, China locked down completely. And while there's still virus floating around in the society and you have a completely naive population, it's like you're starting from square one. Vaccines that might actually prevent infection, i.e. mucosally administered vaccines. Now, that's still at the stage of discovery. And here's what I mean, because people always say, why don't you just make a bunch of it? But we don't know what it is we're going to make a bunch of. Now, that may be a combination of two vaccines, one administered nasally and one systemically, because nasal prevention, if it prevents you or gives you just mild symptoms, it never lets the virus get beyond the nasopharynx. You might not get good protection against severe disease if you get a breakthrough.
A 6-year-old girl has been found alive and well in a makeshift room underneath a staircase 2 years after she went missing. Police at the time suspected Paisley Schultes had been abducted by her biological parents, Kimberly Cooper and Kirk Schultes Jr., who lost custody of her. They executed a search warrant this week on her grandfather's home in the town of Saugerties, New York. The Saugerties Police Department on Tuesday said that after an hour-long search, investigators removed boards and discovered the girl and her mother hiding in a dark and wet enclosure. Paisley was taken to police headquarters where paramedics examined her, police told the Daily Freeman, the community's local newspaper. The girl was in good health and released to her legal guardian. Police said they interviewed her father several times since the girl went missing. He maintained that he had no knowledge of her location and told officers that he had not seen the child. Police arrested the parents, Kimberly Cooper and Kirk Schultes Jr., and the girl's grandfather, Kirk Schultes. They face charges of custodial interference and endangering the welfare of a child.
They're trying to balance.
Top U.S. infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci is urging a trickling back to normality despite the remaining risks posed by COVID-19.
There's no perfect solution to this.
In an interview with Reuters Wednesday, Fauci said states across the country have tough choices to make between health and safety and growing fatigue with ongoing restrictions.
You don't want to be reckless and throw everything aside, but you got to start inching towards that. And you're right. When you do that, you then to veer away from paying attention to something that might be important. So somebody's going to ask the question that I don't have the answer to. What's the balance?
Fauci drew a clear contrast with the approach taken by mainland China and Hong Kong, which is currently battling a wave of infections after months of living virtually virus-free.
Well, it doesn't work because I think, what they did is they locked down, China locked down completely. And while there's still virus floating around in the society and you have a completely naive population, it's like you're starting from square one.
U.S. officials said earlier on Wednesday they were preparing updated COVID-19 guidance as the Omicron surge declines across the country. That follows announcements from several states, including New York and California, that they will be lifting mask mandates for schools or other public settings in the coming weeks. Despite the decline in cases, the numbers remain high, with some 2,200 Americans dying from COVID-19 every day, most of them unvaccinated.
Leave or face arrest. That's the message on leaflets handed out by police in Ottawa on Wednesday to truckers and protesters blockading the city's downtown. And it looks like the first step in a promised crackdown to end a noisy but largely peaceful protest in the Canadian capital over the government's COVID-19 restrictions, now in its third week. At least one large rig did leave the blockade, but others remained unmoved. One demonstrator simply ripped it up And a sign posted on a toilet in the protest area read, "Attention police, place all tickets here." Police say some 33 people have already been arrested. Protester Andrew Bro said if it happens to him, so be it.
I'm not afraid. If that's what their captains and the police chief wants to bring to this peaceful protest is violence, then that is on their own. We're here peacefully and will remain peacefully. Even if they attempt to arrest us, we will be arrested peacefully.
Ottawa residents who say they've endured some incessant honking, blocked streets, verbal harassment, and litter have expressed frustration with police who, until now, have mostly watched the protest rather than intervening.
This is not a peaceful protest.
As pressure built, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau this week took a rare measure, invoking Canada's Emergencies Act, which, pending parliamentary approval, would empower his government to cut off protesters' funding and reinforce provincial and local law enforcement with federal officers. The federal public safety minister on Wednesday blamed extremist groups for helping organize protests in Ottawa and at U.S. border crossings. Police in the province of Alberta this week arrested 13 people linked to a border blockade there and seized guns. 4 members of the group have been charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
We are assessing the most important factors based on where we are in the pandemic.
As Omicron-related cases declined sharply across the U.S., CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky on Wednesday said her agency is preparing for the next phase of the pandemic, which includes updated guidance on mask wearing.
We want to give people a break from things like mask wearing when these metrics are better, and then have the ability to reach for them again should things worsen.
The move comes as a growing number of U.S. states announce plans to end indoor mask mandates and ease other restrictions.
It's about time. Yep, I'm ready to get rid of them.
The indoor mask mandate was already lifted in the country's most populous state, California, as of 12:01 a.m. local time on Wednesday, although in some parts, like LA County, it remains in effect. Yvonne Mendez manages a candy shop and antique mall in Bakersfield, north of LA, where masks are no longer required.
Some people want that protection, so it's their choice if they come in and they want to wear the mask now. But some people don't want to, they're just tired of it all, and they're ready to come in and just do shopping and feel normal again.
Walensky cautioned that people across the country should still wear masks when experiencing COVID symptoms during the 10 days following a COVID diagnosis or following exposure to someone with COVID. She said new guidelines would be announced in the coming weeks.